It's time for Ask Mike Mondays. Mike answers one listener's question every week. Here's Michael Becker and Paul Peebles.
Welcome to Ask Mike Mondays. I'm your host, Paul Peebles, National Underwriter for Old Capital. And joining me today, the man who's up for re-election in the great state of Texas, Mr. Michael Becker. How are you?
Hey, Paul, doing pretty good. How are you?
Yes, the governor of Texas is with us. I'm surprised you were able to get in a few comments into your own podcast because you're trying to become the next great governor of the state of Texas. And again, why do we make that comment?
I guess it's because we own a lot of apartments in Texas. So you started calling me the mayor, and then that turned into the governor when we started buying in the city of Austin as well. So I guess I'm statewide now.
You're statewide and you pay so much in property taxes. They should be picking you up in a large limousine and driving you every place. The amount of property taxes you guys pay. Is that going up or is that going down or staying the same in Texas for you guys?
My experience, it only goes one way, and that's up. So it's continually going up. At least it's been going up for the last decade or so. So yeah, 2020, there's no reprieve in property tax valuations, and I guess we'll see what the rates are because the rates are being set right about now. So we'll kind of see what the rates are going to be on top of that. See if there's a double whammy with both value and rate.
All right. Again, joining us is Michael Becker. Michael with SPI. His group and Michael purchased over 10,000, almost 11,000 apartment units in Texas. As you know, Michael is a former banker, worked for one of the largest banks in the country, and has made the transition a few years ago from, lending money to actually owning a bunch of real estate. So we listened to Michael about what he's doing. He's kind of on the front lines, and he's a good source of information for you if you're thinking about getting into multifamily, just for listening to somebody who's done it and how they did it and kind of learn through, his experiences to kind of shortcut your journey into multifamily. So Michael, thanks for being with us and hanging out with us. So I guess the thing also I want to talk about by the time this comes out is that don't forget about the Old Capital Conference for 2020. That's a virtual conference this year. And so we have some great speakers, Michael being one of them up on stage. You're able to watch the conference from your confines at the house or the office, wherever you watch podcasts or webinars from. Just make sure that you're wearing a shirt if you turn on the camera and the microphone, because this is a great networking opportunity. Not only are you going to be able to watch and see people up on stage, but you're also going to be able to participate. And if you're a limited partner, meet general partners. If you're a general partner, meet limited partners. We're going to have a great networking opportunity. And then the conference is the second day. That's going to be an all-day conference, and our keynote speaker, which is going to come out, is a gentleman named Commander Snodgrass. Guy Snodgrass is F-18 pilot, was a Top Gun, then became a Top Gun instructor, and then worked all his way up to Aviator of the Year for the Navy after he spent years at the Naval Academy and MIT, and then he became a speechwriter for General Mattis. So he's going to talk a little bit about the trials and tribulations of being an aviator and how that relates to you being an apartment owner. So it's going to be a fantastic keynote speech. And this is a guy that's actually a mover and shaker. So we're very fortunate about having him as the keynote speaker. So go to oldcapitalconference.com to get your tickets to come join us on October 20th and 21st. So we're looking forward to seeing you then. So Michael, let's get back to the serious part of the podcast here. How are things going? How are collections and how are occupancy of properties as we record this towards the middle of October of 2020? What are you seeing?
Yeah, things are still holding up. What are we, I guess, in our 6th or 7th round of collections post-COVID? So it's still, if you were to ask this in March, I would have been surprised to see that, kind of just pulled my stats up ahead of this, and we're like 93.5% physical, 95.6% pre-lease. So, I mean, it's pretty strong metrics all in all. I think, it's holding up really well. It's kind of historically, as good or better than this time last year. I mean, if you think about the fourth quarter is usually the weakest quarter in the multifamily business, where you tend to have a little bit more vacancy and a little less seasonal demand. And, we're obviously on the onset of the fourth quarter, but it's holding up really well. And collections have maybe just a touchdown front kind of month over month, but we're still kind of hold pretty well. And, I think we'll be kind of that 96 collected range. And I bet you we start actually going up. We're actually able to get some of these folks that have not been paying for a few months are starting to kind of get out through the court system. And so all in all, it's going okay, Paul.
Well, let's kind of talk a little bit about the court systems. I mean, we're just going to make a reflection of Texas and maybe the Southwest and some of these landlord-friendly states, because just recently the CDC kit had come out with some update of their, I guess that would have been end of August, September comments about what was going to go on. And can we talk a little bit about some of the things that the CDC is kind of laying out and some just general guidelines? One of the things is this order is not intended to terminate or suspend the operations of any state or local court, nor is it intended to prevent housing providers from starting eviction proceeds, provided that the actual eviction of a covered person for non-payment of rent does not take place during the period of order. So before I ask that question, is the biggest hammer that we've had when it comes to apartments is that having the ability to evict tenants for non-payment or for some specific reasons of non-compliance to whatever the rules and laws are that not only the state puts in, but also the ownership group has in their leases, and it's usually a promulgated lease from the state of this case of Texas. So tell us a little bit about what's your take right now about what's going on with the hammer of evictions.
Yeah, so the order we're talking about, the CDC came out, I think it was early September, so a little bit over a month ago, and put an eviction moratorium in place nationwide for people that were impacted economically by COVID-19, and that kind of order ran through the end of 2020. So basically, it was about a 4-month order, and that was kind of the next thing as we were just kind of coming off the CARES Act and how that was really limiting our ability to actually evict. And, as we just kind of mentioned, we're holding up pretty well, collecting money in spite of all this. And, I think every local area is functioning a little bit differently. So, what I experienced in Texas is probably a little bit different than, the West and the East Coast and some of the more tenant-friendly jurisdictions. But I'm going to hold up pretty well. And then this was the fear that was going to really kind of hurt our collection efforts even more if these tenants, saw this national order and they know they can't be evicted. Then, why a lot more on a percentage basis might just take that as an opportunity not to pay the landlords, pay the rent. And then so what we've actually digging further into the order, basically the way we understand it, I'm certainly not a lawyer, but the way we understand the way we've seen it kind of operate just in practice in Dallas, Fort Worth in particular. We're just going through our first rounds in Austin because they had a different eviction moratorium that kind of overlaid through the end of September. But in September, we have a lot of people that we're kind of working with, Paul, that are on kind of payment plans that we normally historically wouldn't have taken partial payments of rent, that we're allowing these people to kind of, pay, weekly or just kind of pay as they go to make sure that they have the opportunity to keep current and stay within their unit. So the people that are working with us, we're not getting aggressive with, but the people that have just basically stopped communicating with us and has stopped making any attempt to make payment, we have filed eviction on a lot of those folks. So actually filed evictions in early September, and we filed evictions on 21 people out of our, roughly 6,000 units that we own. And of the 21, I found it was really interesting a couple weeks ago when I kind of got the results. So of the 21, 19 of those people actually just skipped. So meaning they just went and got their stuff and vacated the unit. And then 2 people were still kind of in the process of actually going through the court system. So that was really honestly kind of encouraging to me from a landlord's perspective, that these people kind of saw that the writings on the wall, or kind of at the end of the ability to stay in the unit without actually making payment. They actually just got up and skipped, which was probably all things considered the best outcome we could have hoped for in the case. Now we are able to get those units back, turn them over, get them made ready and lease them out because as we talked about earlier, we're in the mid 90s from an occupancy standpoint. So there's certainly demand and qualified traffic still in the marketplace to come fill these vacant units. So we'll see kind of how October goes. We filed, I think, another 13 or 14 in Dallas Fort Worth, and I think it's like 18 to 20 in Austin because it's the first time that we've had the ability to file in Austin. So we'll see how the Austin and Travis County kind of react relative to Dallas County, and Tarrant County, where we filed most of the stuff up in Dallas Fort Worth. So it's been kind of interesting.
Certainly sounds like it's very interesting about what you're going and having the ability to use that little hammer of evictions and making sure that it is done correctly. So anything else that you think is important when it comes to occupancy? Think of some of these folks that are in some I don't know, maybe lower class apartment buildings, whether it's C plus or C minus or C. What are you estimating what their occupancy issues are these days? Or a lot of people that, let's say, are in your properties and the A minuses and Bs are able to telecommute. Some of the people on the lower side with different job skills, they're not able to telecommute into their office or their workplace. What's their occupancy? What are you hearing from some of your friends on the Class C properties?
Yeah, I don't know if occupancy necessarily is a problem from a physical standpoint. It's more of the economic occupancy because we still have some workforce housing left in our portfolio, and we have some brand new stuff. So we kind of span, from old to new in our portfolio. But it's definitely been disparate with the level of delinquency where, a handful of our properties, Paul, you never would know that there was COVID-19 going on. So we're collecting, an over 99% of scheduled rents is kind of like normal, where we have some of the older stuff tend to, where there is a little bit more delinquency, it tends to skew towards the older assets, which are, kind of your more workforce housing, where these, like, as you mentioned, those people that live in a C-class 1970s vintage deal, they tend to have to physically be somewhere to go earn an income, where, someone that lives in a nicer, newer deal, they can, kind of work remotely from their home and not lose their paycheck if they have to work from home or deal with their kids that are they're homeschooling and things like that. So it's really been very disparate in the way the delinquencies kind of spread out. And a lot of those service jobs are the ones that really kind of got hit, where a little bit more of the white collar jobs have seemingly been spared, at least up until this point. I guess we'll see kind of how this all plays out as we go further and further into this. But that's really kind of been the biggest variance I've kind of seen in the marketplace. But, I think that it's a temporary dislocation, Paul. I think, if these people can, come in these deals, if they're well capitalized, they had, some working capital set aside, they weren't over levered, they're running a pretty clean shop kind of going into COVID. I think most of those folks are going to be able to kind of weather this okay. Lenders seem to be pretty dovish with the way they're approaching a lot of these people. So, I haven't really seen any real headlines or heard any sort of whispers of anyone actually being foreclosed on or threatened to be foreclosed on the last, 6-7 months or we've been in this. I don't know how, Paul, have you heard anything like that whatsoever? I haven't heard like a single person in the markets we play in.
Now, I mean, the biggest thing that we were hearing back in March and April was that we were going to see occupancy and collections fall by 20 or 25%. Kind of the end of the world was coming, and that everyone was going to go out there and get foreclosed upon or get forbearance upon, and that they were going to have to sell the property and then find some way for somebody to come in at a lower price and buy that property. But that really has not happened, even though a lot of these opportunity funds back in April and March came out of the ground, and they had $10 million or $100 million to try to find these distressed assets. That really has not happened. So now that money has got to be repurposed. Instead of buying distressed assets, it's gone into buying just really actually stabilized assets. And so instead of buying a property with 80% occupancy, as you're hearing from Mike, and most of these properties are at 95% physical occupancy, and collections are still pretty good on most of these properties in the A minus and B minus and actually C plus space. And so the only thing that has been a good thing that's come out of this, I don't know how that for the economy, but interest rates have come down, and so that's really been the coronavirus benefit, is having the capital markets step up to the plate and actually have rates in the 2s or 3s. So just even 12 months ago we were at a 1.5 or 2 points higher than that. So the discount really has come in the capital markets and has not come in the pricing. And are you seeing cap rates? Where are you seeing those at this time, Mike?
They're going down, right? We play really in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Austin, because kind of Austin's just gone parabolic the last 3 months, really. I think virtually everything I see down there, new, old, value add, stabilized, everything's generally starting with the 3 in front of it. I mean, this sounds insane, but they're kind of in the high 3s across the board. And there's not much supply really kind of going through the pipeline, and what is on the market is getting, bid up, and there's a lot of interest into it. So it's real expensive. Dallas isn't quite to that level, but I mean, it feels like, what was, kind of the high fours is now kind of the low to mid fours on a cap rate standpoint, at least what we're looking at. Whether that's, the value add stuff's even got more of it. And I think we're seeing more and more interest, after taking a 3 or so month hibernation, we all kind of woke up and, kind of what I figured is people want to do deals. And if there's 3% IO money, the capital market's going to rage and people are going to go on a buying spree because all these deals look, really, really good when you can, size a brand new construction deal to damn near 80% leverage. I mean, that tells me one or two things need to happen. Either interest rates need to go up or cap rates have to come down. And we probably need to get JP back on before the end of the year from Pensford. But, listen to him and everyone else. I mean, the interest rates aren't going anywhere for a while. So that tells me that cap rates need to compress because you shouldn't be able to get, high single digits on stabilized deals, right out of the gate from a cash on cash standpoint. And that's kind of where we're at. So, it's actually a pretty good time before prices really move. I think, all the stuff that we own, I think got more expensive over the last, 9-10 months that we are in 2020.
So let's kind of wrap this up and just kind of talk some about the bullet points that we've just talked about. One, you're seeing collections still fairly strong, and you're seeing occupancy still fairly strong. Is that correct?
Yep. Still hanging in there on both.
And then on the CDC rules that we talked about or were presented to us about a month and a half ago, they've started to tighten up of what some of the rules are, and that you're still able, at least in Texas, you're still able to evict some folks for non-payment. But what you're seeing too is that once you start the eviction process, you've seen a few people just leave without saying goodbye and walking away. Is that right?
That's what we've seen so far, but I think it's really it's obviously, state by state and region by region. And honestly, at this point, I think JP court by JP court. So depending on what the JPs are going to, just as a piece kind of in Texas, here, the eviction cases, kind of depending on what they're going to do, really kind of dictates a lot of this. But in Texas, usually, or at least in this round and historically, when you go to eviction court, if the resident doesn't show up, then you get a judgment for the landlord if they just don't, they kind of no show to court. So that's kind of what I think a lot of this is probably going to be. If you just kind of are better at paperwork than your tenant, and you file the eviction, you go to court, then usually they just don't show up, and you're gonna get the judgment right there on the spot.
So that's awful helpful to have your Irish shillelagh knocking the people that are not making payments back to you or not keeping the rents current. So that's good. And then also too is that the capital markets have been fairly strong during this period of time, and so that interest rates are low and they will continue to be low for the next say 2-3 years, and so you're able to get higher leverage in some of these transactions than you were back even 12 months ago. So, and then cap rates are fairly strong, and then are actually still getting impacted by getting lower and a little bit lower in some of the markets that you're in. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I think either interest rates have to go up or cap rates have to compress because right now everything is looking too good from an economic standpoint. So, and we know that there was a ton of capital in the beginning of 2020 looking to go into multifamily, and that money hasn't gone anywhere. If anything, got added to with all the stimulus, and every area is a little bit different. And kind of what I think we're seeing is the trends that were in place of people leaving higher regulated, higher tax locations, and kind of the Sun Belt, Florida, Texas, Arizona kind of type markets. I think that's been exacerbated, and what I've kind of described about Dallas and Austin. I think if you go to Phoenix, you probably hear the same thing, maybe even more magnitude in Phoenix than you're even seeing in Dallas and Austin.
So if people want to get more information about what you guys do at SPI, what's the best way to do it? And what the heck do you guys do at SPI? Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so the best way to find out more information is simply go to a company's website, which is www.spiadvisory.com. That's SPI like spy. Advisory.com. There's a contact us form. Fill that out, and we're always happy to have or send out some information about potentially working with us and potentially investing alongside of us. And really, the main focus, Paul, that we do is really just identifying high quality deals, putting them together, and then going out and raising capital. We're actually doing our first deal right now, which will probably be basically subscribed by the time this comes out or shortly thereafter. First deal in 2020 apartment syndication. So excited about that. We're actually able to figure that out. So we'll just put it out and people just come in, get on the list, and invest alongside us.
That's great. Some great information from Michael Becker. Again, that's spiadvisory.com. Did I hear that right?
That's right.
All right. So Michael Becker at SPI, we certainly do appreciate spending some time and getting us smarter on multifamily operations and ownership. So we do certainly appreciate that. Again, I'm Paul Peebles. It was Michael Becker. Have a great day.